carried the man to jail and arrested.
Before we tell about that, tell about how the accident happened, going on there.
Well, I didn't know about the gravel truck. Yeah, the gravel truck was a man coming up to them. And one of the there's two gravel trucks, and one of them pulled around the other, and they was going towards town over south, and this man was going north. But he was on his way back to Norton. Well, anyway, the man lost control of his car, of the truck, and went in the ditch and turned over. And he was crawling out the window of his truck, and the law pulled up and asked him if he's all right, and he said yes, he was all right. And he said, well, what about these two men laying back here on the road? And he said that's the first time he remembered that about them getting on his truck, since he got in down there. And he said he wouldn't have hurt him for anything. And so they carried him on, put him in jail, and he sent for Mr. Bradshaw and Papa to come down there. Mr. Bradshaw didn't go, but after he had sent for Papa the second time, he went down there and talked to him. And the man told him it was just an accident, that he wouldn't hurt him for anything. And Papa come back home and he told Mama, said, I really felt sorry for the man. Said, I don't hold anything against him. Said he was scared to death. So on the day they had the trial, they kept calling for Mr. Hargrove and Mr. Bradshaw to come up and take the stand, and testify. And Papa wouldn't go, and Mr. Bradshaw just walked up there and told him he didn't have anything against the man. He turned that around and went back to his seat. But I have thought so many times what courage they both showed because of the way they done that. And I was telling Myrtle one day about Mr. Tom Robinson, the way he reacted when Estelle got run over. Well, they was going around the curve down there on a wagon, and Estelle was sitting on the cooking pole. Well, he saw was it persimmons? He saw across the road, and he jumped off and started across to get him some persimmons, and this car hit him. It didn't kill him, but it injured him real bad. And Mr. Robinson was wanting to kill the man. But I just thought, and everybody thought Mr. Robinson was just a real good man. Well, he was a good man. But when it come right down to it, Papa and Mr. Bradshaw showed more courage than he did. I remember me and Dee always got to go to the movie on Saturday night, and we lived in on West Market Street. And that night, well, I seen Otis in town that day, and we went home and ate supper and went on to the movie. Well, if we was going to the movie, I heard the ambulance going through town, and it was just a screaming, and it just made me feel so bad. I couldn't hardly stand it. I just felt like something was happening, but I didn't know what. But we went on to the movie, and about halfway through the movie, Estelle and Lucille come in there, and they was crying. And they come to me, they found us and told us about it. And told us that Otis got killed. I said, he didn't do it. I said, it ain't been but just a little while till I saw him coming. And I just couldn't believe that because it was such a shock,
But y'all know the spot where he got killed, you know where it is?
Yeah, right there, those nigger houses. The one nigger house.
Before you go down the hill,
right? Before you go down the hill.
There's a light pole there, right on the left.
It is.
Right over there.
But anyway, Lucille and Mama had bought them a coat and put on layaway down at Miss Norton's store. And Papa went in that evening to pay them coats off. And Miss Norton said, Mr. Hargrove, was that your boy that got killed out yonder a while ago? And Papa said, no. And she said, well, it was Otis Hargrove's. And Papa just grabbed them coats and took off, right then the funeral home was right down there where the CEI store is now. And Papa run all the way down there and went in and asked that man if it was. And he come home and Son was with him. And Son jumped out of the truck before he could and come and told Mama that Otis was dead. Yeah, McConnell's picked him up. And
that's where the college funeral home was, right there on the square.
Right where the CPI. And they went out and picked him up, but then Rainey come and
Ardmore.
But I don't know who took Charlie to you. When they brought Charlie to the
They took
hospital.
Charlie to
I
the
think
Dr.
Sprung.
Lou's hospital.
Yeah, and the day that Otis was buried, then me and Dee went home, and we,
Charlie died that night, didn't he? He was,
yeah, and next morning, me and Dee got up and made sandwiches and a pot of coffee to carry back down there to Gladys and Mr. Bradshaw, and they had Charlie died during the night, and they had done got him for and I just felt so bad about that pot of coffee. I just couldn't hardly stand it. I know it does something to you.
There's one thing that I always appreciated about Papa, and like when something like happened, he wouldn't try to take money from somebody. Now he could have probably sued this guy that killed us, Charlie, but he didn't want any dime, any part of any money. He said that wouldn't bring the boy back, and he didn't want none of the money. And so he just, he just didn't have anything. He didn't try to get anything.
well, Papa said too, he said, you don't sue people for doing things, when they was trying to help them. He said, now that man was giving them a ride. He said, you couldn't sue them for
So
that.
that just always stuck with me about Papa. Now things like that, he was really a gentleman about it.
Well, he was a gentleman about a lot of things.
Yeah, he was.
I remember all the time we was growing up, every time there's anybody sick, back then, when the people got sick, people in the community went in and took turns setting up with them every night and taking care of them. And every time anybody gets sick, he'd send at least 2 of us every other night to set up. And
But did you say Papa said something about Otis after he got killed or something about he was a good boy all his life or something?
yeah, when they got him ready, they brought him back out to the house, and he went in there and looked at him, and he said that he's a good boy, said he never sighs from his life, and never give me a minute's trouble.
So that was saying a lot.
All right, so how long y'all lived there at Grand Island after this?
Well, the day that Otis got killed, he had been hauling corn and stuff for us. We was moving back up there right then.
Up to where he lived?
Yeah, because he was fixing to move, and we was moving right in behind.
And George and Otis was gonna move back over on next to Copeland and Blair's house where we had lived a few years before that.
Okay. Blair, where Copeland is there, up Copeland Road?
I told you where that, it's a
It was
barn there now.
on Arnie Blair's place.
Is that where you was talking about living near Blair's store, where y'all lived one time?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, that's a Copeland then.
Uh-huh.
All right, so did y'all go ahead and move back in that house?
Yes.
How long did you stay there?
1 year that year.
Well, I was married. I don't remember.
And then we moved from there down on Young Place.
Right below where David Roots lives.
Well,
Young.
Then Papa and Mama.
Young?
Then Papa and Mama decided on the beginning, they said they couldn't move in our house, but Otis lived in it. But since they already had it ready, they went ahead and moved in and made a crop, one crop, and they moved down to Young's place.
And that's where we lived when me and Lucille got married.
Yeah.
Both of us got married.
That was a happy year, wasn't it?
Yeah, that was a happy
That
year.
was 1946.
What year did you get married? Both of you married in 46?
Yeah. Lucille married in February, and I married at the first day of June.
So Papa rented the Young place, farm there?
Yeah.
How long did we stay there?
No.
We didn't stay there a couple of years.
Well, where'd y'all move to from there?
That's when he built that new house down on Newcut Road.
So after that, that house that's got that red roof on it down there?
Where Osie May lives.
Yeah.
That's where we moved to. He had the house, he had bought the land, and it was an old house on it, fairly good old house, but he built a new house. And that's where we lived. Then I got married while in May of that year, 47.
Then
We moved there in November, I believe, of 46. November, December, I think the last November. And then I married in May 46.
Well, Papa already built the house when you moved,
Mhm.
I mean, when you married.
The year.
Then
The year
he sold that and built another house up right below where that place is there.
On the Mooresville Road. He
built-
sold that place on U-Cut, and then did he buy a place? Where
Yeah,
he
He
built?
bought some land and built a house there.
40 acres.
That was right up on the
Same
same side
side.
of the road.
I know where that house is, 'cause I got a picture of that other house he built.
Who was it bought that little house?
Grady Congo.
Congo.
Bought that house from Papa.
Yeah.
The same Grady that I know?
Yes, his dad.
His daddy? Okay.
And
Alright.
that's as best as far as I know, just one right after the
Well,
other.
then,
And because I wasn't around.
Where did they go? Where did y'all go to? From the Congo place. Where did they go?
We moved Ardmore.
Yeah, I get,
Prospect. Taft, Tennessee.
yeah. But he didn't live,
Taft, Tennessee.
but he didn't live there but a few months, did he?
No, he
Built
lived-
you and MD a little house, or
Well, we moved the
one
old
in?
house down there from Bumpus' place.
Oh, did you?
Yeah, and we lived there, I guess, 3 or 4 months, and then he sold that and bought from Alton Shannon down there.
Did Ardmore?
And lived there.
Did he just buy a house or did he buy a farm?
He bought the farm, and he farmed there. I guess they stayed there 2 years, didn't they? Cause y'all lived on the station at then. And that's the year Patsy died, and it's the year we went to Mississippi. And then he sold that and bought this place over here where,
Sam?
yeah, he bought that, but he didn't live there. He sold it and he bought that house there where Jimmy Thompson lived. That old big house.
The one that Sam lived in there for a while.
Yeah.
Now, he bought the place that Sam bought from him, is that right?
Yeah.
He bought that first,
Yeah.
and then he bought that other place?
And then he bought that other place, then he sold that and rented a little 4-room house over here on 4-lane highway, and they stayed there 2 years. Then they sold that and bought over there, up there on the Blackman Road, and that's where they
Where
lived
he
when he
died.
died. And they stayed there, Mama and Sally stayed there till they sold and moved there where she's at now.
Well, what year did they live at the Bumpus place?
It was in the early 50s.
Let's see, Larry, it was 51 because Larry was 2 years old when they lived at the Bumpus place.
I know he was just a little bitty
Now,
kid.
where's the Bumpus place?
It's out from Brown's Corner.
It's on that road, you know where Coffee Pot, Low Coffee Pot.
You know where Mr. Bailey run that store up there?
I don't know much about that area.
You know where Brown's Corner is.
Is that up
On the
there?
Mooresville Road.
On Mooresville Road,
Yeah,
up there, way on that Port Ardmore?
Yeah, well,
Well,
that
that's
road goes, the Bumpus place is right straight in that road. It goes.
Between there and 251.
Okay.
Come down to Coffee Pot.
Well, I look it up sometime.
All right, that's good, that's
Well,
good.
Yeah.
And I had a loose tooth, so I got me a mirror, but I went down to the barn and I pulled it and I throwed it over the fence in the cornfield, and y'all was over there working, and I went and took Mick Odell and told her I'd pull my tooth, and she said, well, what did you do with it? And I said, I throwed it over in the cornfield. She said, well, if a dog steps over it, you'll have a dog tooth. And I hunted that tooth and cried on in the evening, and I got so sick I just vomited. I cried so, but I never could find my tooth, and Mama told me she was just a joke.
Well, I've heard that all my life. I was just called old fogey things like that, and I don't know why. And Mama never would even sweep trash out of that door on New Year's Day, and she'd she'd, on New Year's Day, she would always wash us something, clothes, and fix them up for us to put on New Year's Day, make us put them on, and she'd always cook a cake. And that's, we never missed a cake on New Year's Day.
Y'all eat hog jaw and black-eyed peas?
Hog jaw, black-eyed peas.
Is that right?
Yeah.
And I saw a rabbit down there in that cornfield, and Papa said, well, why didn't you catch him? And I said, well, I couldn't. And he said, well, get you a little salt and go down there and sprinkle it on his ear, and said he'll stop to scratch it, and then you can catch him. Well, I got me a handful of salt, and I went down there and I hunted all over that cornfield for that rabbit, but I never could find it.
I remember, you might remember, Papa went somewhere one time to borrow some money to put in a crop. And, what's that thing?
We probably lived down there at Horton Newby's.
Horton Newby spoke up and told the fellow that he'd stand behind him or something like that. Who was he trying to borrow from?
Well, Mr. Newby went early that morning. We started the crop, and he went early that morning to see if he could get somebody to furnish us to make the crop. And he come back along about dinner time, and he said he rode all over Athens and couldn't get nobody to furnish him. And Papa said, well, I'll go down there, and he had no T-model forward. And he went down there at Jim Beasley's, and when he come back, he had a barrel of flour. A barrel was 4 50-pound bags, and he had a bag of coffee, and a bag of sugar, and a whole bunch of bacon. And Jim Beasley furnished us that year, and Horton Newby owned the farm and couldn't even get nobody to furnish him.
Is that right?
Yeah. But
somebody said that, I think it was Mr. Beasley, told Horton Newby that he'd rather take Papa's word than his.
Well, he did. And Mr. Newby went down there. He said that was one of the places that he went. But he said he went to every businessman in Athens and he couldn't find nobody. And Papa just told him, he said, well, I'll just go down there and get furnishing myself. And he went down there, and it just surprised Mr. Newby to tell you.
Now, where did y'all rent from?
That was about 35, I guess, wasn't it?
Now, where was that place at?
Well, it was right over here on Mooresville Road, right out at on the north, on the south end of it, I guess, because it wasn't too far down off of Mooresville Road.
Where it comes out on Old 31 now?
It was right on the side of John Gordon's.
Well, we lived in the first house on the side of the road going north, on the right side in an old log house.
Is that down there now where that Sardis Springs Church of Christ is, right in that area down there?
It's further on, down towards Brown's Corner.
You know where John Gordon lives.
Well, you know where your granddaddy died. Well, it's the
Right
it was the first and second house on this side, down on the same side.
On the same side of the road.
Now, John Gordon lives on the left side of the road.
Yeah.
But I was just saying, you're saying at the Church of Christ, I was just trying to get you closer to the place.
Okay.
Yeah, and but the old house that we lived in is gone now, but Horton Newby's house still stands, but it's pretty well rotten and done.
Is that right? It's on that road too. Now, did Horton Newby, he built that new road. Was he still living when they built that house over on Holt Road?
And they like never got Miss Newby to move over there because this was their old home place. They raised their children there.
Well, did they move out of this old house over into that big new house?
And they like never got her to move over there because she wanted to stay in her own home house.
Well, that's where they lived when James went to Athens College.
Is that right?
He was still at home, he went to college, finished school, finished college.
Well, they lived there all them children.
Michael. you know anything about when they were dating? Have you heard stories about it or anything?
Well, I don't really know much about when they was dating, but when they went off to get married, why, Mama was always the cook at home. And when she went down before breakfast and got her shoes and went back upstairs and hid behind the flue and got dressed. Then when Grandpa and Grandma come down to eat breakfast, she slipped down the stairs and slipped out the front door and went down to Papa's daddy and woke up his sister, and that was when they went off to get married.
Okay. Now, did they live in Hazel Green then?
Yeah, they lived in Hazel Green.
All of them did?
Okay. Over in Madison County.
Okay.
And Papa was still in the bed, and Grandma went in there and said, Jim, get up, Myrtle is out here. So Papa, he didn't think she was out there yet. He was fooling around, so he got up and looked out the window, and sure enough, there she was, out there in her wedding dress, all ready to get married.
How far did she have to walk?
I don't know.
Well, I don't know either, but it wasn't very far. If it had been, she wouldn't went because she went by daylight. Grandpa went and looked upstairs and called for her. She said she heard him calling. Said he went back down and he said, well, sis, the cook's gone. And she's standing behind the flue listening.
Is that right? So he knew she was going to get married.
Yeah, they knew, but they didn't know when. So she just.
So he was talking to his wife when he said the
he
cook's
called her
gone?
sis.
Called her sis. Okay. Now where did Papa and Grandma live right when they first got married?
Well, I don't know.
But they live right around Hazel Green somewhere?
Yeah, they live around Hazel Green and around New Market for most of the time.
Okay. Now who was Papa working for? Did he work for his daddy or do you know?
Well, he had a little place of his own. He bought a little old place that was all grown up in woods. And he built a 2-room house, and that's where we lived. Well, Estelle was born there in 1921.
Okay.
And then we moved from there back up in Tennessee, next to Prospect, Tennessee, in 1922.
Okay. Now, you talk about them getting married. After Papa got up and got ready, they went somewhere to get married. Did they just go to a preacher's house?
Yeah, they went to a preacher's house, and the preacher married.
And he was at the hog pen.
Yeah.
I remember Mama
And
telling
he
me.
was out the hog pen, so they went out there again, find him.
And he married him at hog
He
pen.
married them out there. And his sister was with me, so V.
Oh, was she? Aunt V?
V,
Papa's sister. Okay. Now, you say Papa, all y'all lived in that house until Mama was born? Till
Yeah, she
Estelle
was born there.
So that was
Now-
how many kids lived in that little 2-room house?
Well, Estelle's the fifth one.
Fifth one.
Yeah. So there was 7 of us.
That's a bunch of folks in there.
It sure was.
And then you moved to Prospect. Now,
Yeah,
you
we
remember
moved.
anything about that? Is that up there on that creek
It's down on the Elk River.
down on Elk River?
You go up. You know where Blowing Springs Powder is?
Not really.
Well, I don't think in years.
What's the name of it now?
Blowing Springs Powder.
Blowing Springs?
Blowing Spring.
Okay.
There's a Blowing Spring there.
And did he buy a farm or have a
No,
farm?
he sharecropped that.
He sharecropped. You know who with?
His uncle, Uncle Ed Hargrove.
Okay.
And he lived there 2 years. Then we moved back up in another house up on the hill, and it was the same people.
Okay.
Larry, do you remember me and you going up in Tennessee? You carried me to that old haunted house, and it was a Hargrove. Well, it's on up in that community where.
Close to Hannawall Bridge.
Yeah.
Remember that bridge
Yeah.
I took you to? Is that close to there?
Well, that was in 1924, and that was the year Lucille was born. She was born there in that old log house.
And that's the first house y'all lived in up there?
No, it
The
was
second one?
another one.
Okay. Okay.
Then
And how
we
long
moved.
y'all stay there?
We stayed there 2 years, and we moved from there further on down on Ragsdale Creek, and Papa run no water mill there for 2 years, and Velma was born there. That was in 26.
Y'all just lived there for 2 years?
We moved there, we lived there 2 years.
Okay.
And then we moved further on up the creek on Bill Strawbridge's place, and we just stayed there 1 year. And we moved from there up to Pedersen, Alabama.
Okay. Now, where is it that Grandma tried to learn to drive?
Well, I don't even know.
It was on the hill there before we lived by that one on the mill.
Ragsdale Creek.
Oh, was it?
Yeah.
All right, what you tell about that?
Well, she'd been wanting to learn to drive, and so one day when Papa was not there, well, she just thought she'd get out there in the car and drive. And she got out there, and it was an old T model, you know, that had fenders on each side. And when she started up the car while all of us got on the fenders on each side of the car. So there was a big gate post there, and we went into the barn lot. She took off out toward the barn and run over the gate post, and then she went on and run over a big block in a wood pile and stopped the car. And so that's the last time she ever tried to drive.
Well, while we was there at Ragsdale Creek, well, we'd get out there and wade the creek, and we'd find duck eggs. There was always ducks there on the creek. And we'd take them up there and put them under a hen, and she'd hatch the ducks.
Now, what would the hen do when the ducks hatched out?
Well, she'd take care of it just like they was baby chicks.
Is that right?
She cared for them.
Mama would have to send us to the creek to bring wash water up. So she'd get all of us a bucket apiece, and the bigger children, well, had 2 buckets. We'd go down to the creek to bring wash water, and we'd get down there and we'd get to fishing, and one time we carried the wash tub. And me and Sally got us a stick apiece, and both of us got in that wash tub and got out in the creek. Well, the creek went under a big bluff, and the water was just a-whirling under there. So we was just having a ball, and we got out there and got in where the water was whirling, and it was about to take us under the bluff. And we was really doing some paddling, trying to get that tub back out of that rough water before we went under. And so we finally got out, and then we got to fishing and going back up under the bluffs, catching fish. And so Mama would come out and hollered for us, and Odell and Hassie and all the bigger ones was in the front. They was running as hard as they could when they heard her holler. But all of us had at least one fish apiece. And we was going to go to the house and cook them. Well, I was the smallest one. I was in the back, and when I got up to where I could hear the rest of them crying, I run back down on the bank and throwed my fish back in.
Would y'all just go along the banks and sticking your hands up in holes and stuff and catching fish with your hands?
We catch fish with our hands.
The little creek just full of sucker fish, you know.
Oh,
And I mean, they could just cram full. And you could just go out there and just dip them up. People didn't fish then, they were.
Now,
Nobody but us.
was the creek very deep?
It was in places, but in some places it's just real shallow. And back then there wasn't hardly any bridges, you know, in the country like where we crossed the creek. There wasn't any bridges there. And so one day Papa went. Aunt Evie would come to our house and stay several weeks at a time, and she had sent Papa a letter to come after. So he went after, and that night, it come a big rain, so the next morning they come back. And when they got to the creek, the creek was up just a roaring. And Papa said, Evie, do you think we can get across? And she said, yes, I think we can get across. And they started across, and when they got out in the deepest part of it, drowned the car out. And Papa got out, and the water was way steep, so he waded out and went to the house and got the team and wagon and come back and put it to the car, and Aunt Evie just sat in there. And that little old car was sitting there just a shivering.
Sure.
And so he pulled the car on out and carried it up there and dried it out of there too, and it started again.
Okay, a while ago y'all said something about they lived in Huntsville after they moved from Hazel Green for a little while. Tell me a bit about that.
Well, I was small, and I don't even remember what year it was, but I remember staying down there a while, and Papa and Mama both working in Dallas.
Dallas?
Uh-huh.
Oh, Dallas street over there? Top
On
Bend?
Taylor
Okay.
Street.
Okay, I know where it is.
And they had never lived in town before, and they were afraid to live down there by themselves. So they went out in the country and got Aunt Bee and brought her back down there to stay with them. So one night Papa heard something, and he said, Myrtle, get up and wake up Bee. And Mama got up and went in there where Aunt Bee was, and she was afraid to talk loud. She was just right down over her face and whispered, Bee, Bee. When she opened her eyes and seen Mama stand there with that big white gown on, it like scared her to death.
Okay.
So we left down there and we moved down on the river in the early 30s. And
You left where now?
we left,
Prospect?
well, from, we moved from Creek down to, Locks Crossroads, and that was 1930, and that was the year Son was born, and we stayed there in Sugarcroft 2 years, and we moved down on the river in a very big old house.
Now, is this down here on 72?
Just
All right.
on this side of Oliver,
Okay.
and, we lived there 2 years.
Now, is this before the time that Mr.
Well, this was down to the time that Green was born in 19. We lived there from 30 on through 32.
All right, now y'all lived at Locks Crossroads.
And
Is that when Mr. Ursery took all your stuff away from you?
He took
Why don't you tell me about that?
He took a wagon and team.
Took everything you had, didn't he?
Everything we had, even down to the hose.
Is that right?
Yeah, the spring seat and everything. And Papa owed him $165, and we had 2 good milk cows, and one of them was Mama's, and she'd been offered $100 for one of them cows. And he even took both them cows and that team of ewes and a brand new wagon, everything we had for $165.
All the plows and planters and everything, yeah.
Then he moved Smith and Michael garden. Then we moved down there to the river then.
Now what? Excuse me. What was his name now?
Warner's.
Warren Ursery. That's Dave Ursery's daddy, right?
Yes, it's Dave's daddy.
Okay.
And we lived in a big old 2-story house and had the banisters coming downstairs. And Lucille and Pam would get up there and slide in the banisters. And at the end of the step, it was a little hall there coming from the kitchen to the living room. And a post, it was a big square post at the end of the banisters, and but it was coming down pretty steep. And Lucille was coming down there one day, and she couldn't stop, and she just hollered for me to catch her, and she just sat there with her eyes bugged out and her hands so that like that, and I wouldn't help her down. She couldn't raise back up again. I come down and the hand closed to me.
Oh, okay.
Her hands was, they'd usually catch, but she missed to catch that thing. I just see her every time.
Now, is that the house that's supposed to have been haunted? Is that the one?
No, it was the one we
next one
lived
you
in
lived in?
before that.
Oh, was it?
Across the road.
But I never did believe in haunts, but I really do believe there was something in that house, because we could hear something rolling down stairs. And it would go like it would hear windows breaking.
Okay.
And we'd get up, and I know that I would close the door at night, because I'd check on that, and we had an old iron. We propped the door open in the day, and I'd close that door at night, and I got up many a morning, and that door would be propped open with that iron behind.
Is that right?
Holding the door.
Now, that's the first house y'all lived in down there.
That was the first.
It was on the south side of the road, right? South side of the highway.
Yeah, that was where Ring was from.
The first one's still down there, but the other one's tore down. It's
Yes,
over where that park
I believe
is.
the road was the other way.
But the haunted house still stands.
All right. Now, that place down there was owned by Mr. Gray out of Elkmont, is that right? Fred Gray? Okay. And his people are the ones that own the gym up there now, I think.
Yes.
Okay, his children.
Back to the late 20s or early 30s when Warren Urster took everything we had. Why, we made a good crop that year, but it come a depression, and cotton went to 5 cents a pound, and that's why Papa couldn't pay all of his debts.
Okay.
And Warren had a mortgage on everything we had, and because of the mortgage, well, Papa couldn't sell anything.
Okay.
And so he loaded up the plateaus and tied the cows behind the wagon and just drove out with everything he had.
But if he'd let y'all sell them 2 milk cows, you could have paid him
We
off
could
and
pay
still
him.
had everything
We
else,
could have
right?
sold, he could have sold the milk cows or the 10 mules either, and we could have had the other stuff clear, but he wouldn't do that. He'd come over there and he'd drop that mortgage and he told Papa to read it, and of course Papa couldn't read, and Mr. Warren got me to read it to Papa. And I never will forget reading that mortgage, but he told Papa if, you know, you just had old poor land, it wouldn't make nothing, and it was in the hills. And he told Papa that he wouldn't take it if he'd move on his place. And Papa told him that his land just wouldn't make nothing, and it wasn't no use in him trying, because he just kept buttering and doing it, because he couldn't make it.
Mr. Ursh's land wasn't any good, is that what he's talking
No,
about?
it was just rocks and hills,
Okay.
and he didn't make nothing.
Did you know I still got that mortgage?
Hell,
Have you?
Yeah, I still
Okay.
got it. Mama gave it to me years ago. I asked her if she still had it, because I remembered seeing it there a long time ago.
well, I can still see the mortgage, and I can still see Mr. Warren sitting there.
But
And-
Grandma, that was Mama's mother, they had lived with him. And she knew, you know, just about the history of him ever since he was a young man. And she said that's how he accumulated the most of his wealth, was taking away in Horton.
Yeah.
And his mother and daddy, well, his daddy was wasn't he about 100 years old? Mr.
I think so.
But anyway, he was that real old and couldn't hardly, he's so feeble he couldn't hardly get about. And he had an old house over there on the other side of where we lived, and you could throw a cat through the walls, through the cracks. It wasn't sealed, it wasn't papered or nothing, just 2 old rooms there. And he let his mom and daddy live there.
Did take care of, did try to help him out in it.
They said he didn't.
Pardon? Okay.
Cassie was just 11 days old, wasn't he?
Well, Grandpa Steelman died. Hassie's oldest, right? What happened to him? I mean, he had cancer. And how old was he when he died?
He was 40.
Was he?
Seemed to me like Grandma said 41. I know he's still a young man.
I know
He's
he
a
said
young man,
Grasshopper was just 4 years old, wasn't he?
And he's the youngest child.
Grandpa Steelman was a farmer also, and it was a dry. Grandma said it was a pretty dry year that year, and he'd been worried all of summer, afraid that he wouldn't make enough corn and stuff to feed his children for the winter. And he kept on trying to stay out there and work his crop. One evening he got so sick while he come to the house and sat down in the front door and put his feet on the ground. And Grandma Steelman went there to see what was wrong with him. He told her he was sick. And she said she went out to the peach tree to get a bush to keep the flies off of it. And said while she was out there getting that bush, something spoke to her and said he'd never be well no more. And so she come back and sat down in the door with him and kept the flies off of him, and he told her to take good care of Grasshopper. That was the baby. And in 2 weeks he was dead.
So what happened to her?
Well, she just raised the children,
How'd she support him? Just working the farm or what?
just working the farm or
And
going.
she had chickens and a cow, and they raised them hogs.
Is that right?
They had the meat, and that's what we lived on.
Huh. Now, how many children did they have? Well, Grandma's already married then, right?
Yeah, she was married.
Okay.
And Uncle Ide was married.
There was 10 of them, wasn't there?
I guess it was 8. Wasn't it 8 children still at home when Grandpa died?
It probably was.
Okay, all the way from 4 on up then. So most of them was big enough to work and help
Yeah.
out.
See, Uncle John, Uncle Jane,
What happened to him?
I don't even know what was wrong with him.
Uncle Jeff had TB, and he had it when him and they married.
He did.
And they had this little boy named Nick. Well, Nick was all right till he got to be a teenager, and he developed TB of the bone, so he's had several operations for that. But he's still living.
Okay, so then Grandma Steelman, she got sick with TB. Is that what she had?
No, Grandma Steelman didn't have TB.
She just died in her sleep, but I don't even know what was wrong with her.
Well, I guess Grandma Steelman had a stroke when she died, but she was in her 90s when she died. She died when you was about the size of Logan.
Well, who was that used to live with y'all?
Well, Papa's mother and two sisters lived with us a lot of times. Aunt Abby and Aunt V, and both of them had TB. Well, Aunt V's husband was still living, and they had one girl. But anyway, she'd come to our house and stay for weeks at a time, but she'd have to stay in the bed all the time she was there. And Aunt Abby's husband had died with TB. And she would come, she had two boys, and she'd come and stay for several weeks at a time. And Mama always fed her in her chair. She never went to the table. Mama always brought her meals to the living room and fed her.
Sit in the rocking chair or something?
Yeah, she sat in the rocking chair.
All right, so Grandma Hargrove lived with y'all a lot?
She'd come and stay 2 or 3 weeks. She didn't stay as much as the rest of them did, but she'd come and stay for 2 or 3 weeks at a time.
She'd come every summer.
And Papa Hargrove would come and stay with us. That was when we lived up at Rocks Crossroads. And he would, when he got through eating, he'd always go get him a drink of water. Well, Velma would watch him, and she'd run and beat him to the dipper, and he'd stand there and drink water and drink water. He said, Jim, this kid don't drink enough water to kill him.
He had a mustache, I always thought that was the filthiest mess I ever seen. I couldn't stand the thoughts of drinking at him, so I'd have to go drink by water.
But Grandpa was, even though in his old age, he always worked. And he'd come at our house, and he didn't have no way of making a living for him and Grandma except working by the day. And she would come in the summer after canning was through and stay for a few weeks, and she'd go back home, and he would come and help gather the crop and cut wood for the winter. And he cut wood all day for 50 cents a day.
So he worked for Papa?
He worked for Papa, and that's why he bought the groceries and stuff with him. And Grandma was, they were both old, and sometime through the year she'd had cut her hand, and it set up blood poison, and then she couldn't use it. But they never did, ask anybody for help. Every time we went to their house, a lot of times we'd go spend a weekend. They would always have plenty of food on the table, and she'd always have all kinds of jelly that she had made. And I thought that's the best jelly I ever ate.
Now they still live in Hazel Green?
Yeah, they still live there. They live there the most of the time. And she quilted her own quilts, and they raised a garden, and she canned every year. And she never did ask anybody for, to help her.
Well, they also had their chickens and stuff.
Yeah.
Well, he
Anyway, people
run
lived
that
back
little
then.
gristmill there at Fisk, too, didn't he?
Yeah, he run a mill for a while.
At Fisk? Is that over there? Hazel Green? Okay. All right, now y'all moved that on the river on the Gray Place. And what can you, that was a pretty big place down there, wasn't it?
What do you remember
I
how
don't
many
remember how many acres it was, but it was a lot of, it was a big farm, because we farmed a lot of corn and cotton. We also sowed peas and beans for hay. And we'd let the peas get dry, the first picking, we'd pick them, and we'd shell them and sell them in the wintertime, shell corn and cotton seed and peas.
Okay.
And and we'd cut dyewood, chestnuts, you know.
Uh-huh.
And they made, that's what they used for dye then.
Okay.
Dye out of
Now,
it.
where'd they sell that dyewood at?
Over at Rogersville, but I don't know who bought it.
Okay.
And we'd also cut wood to fire the gins with it.
All the cotton gins around?
Well, in every area, yeah.
Around over where y'all live in that area?
Mm-hmm.
In the summertime, we always planted beans in the cornfield, you know, to just make lots of beans.
What you talking about, running beans that run up the corn?
Cornfield beans. And in the fall then, while he always sold a lot of beans, and all through the year he would have roast ears to sell. And he sold them for 10 cents a dozen.
He'd sell beans and peas too, and stove wood. We have to stove wood.
He'd sell anything.
Yeah.
And we used to cut bidets.
What's that?
It's hickory wood that you split up like square blocks, like stove wood. And they'd carry them, sell them to the factory to make car spokes out of. Have you seen these
Wooden
car
spokes.
wheels with the big spokes?
Right.
Well, they're made out of bidets. And that's what we used to sell.
And where'd they sell all that?
At Ardmore, he sold a lot, and most I remember was at Ardmore. They'd take them out there, and there'd be a man that come down from Nashville every month and buy them. And we'd have to, saw them and bark them, take the bark off.
Right.
And,
So you just squared them up, so what you did, like 3-4 inches square, something like that?
Maybe 2 or 3.
They was 2 inches square.
2 inches. And they were made out of hickory now?
Yeah.
Hickory.
And if they had hickory wood, it's got a hard in it. It's
Right.
white
Right.
outside and red inside.
Right.
And they wouldn't take one of a billet if it had some of that red in it, or if it had a hole in it.
So it had to be perfect,
It had to
smooth
be
wood,
perfect.
no knot holes or nothing?
And Papa carried a load up there one Monday, and they throw nearly every one of them billets out. And he just stacked them out there when he came home, and we put some more. And he put them back on there the next Monday, and carried them back up there and took every one of them.
Is that right?
He never did throw any away. A lot of times they throw out like 2 or 3. He'd bring them back and put them in the pile next day.
He's pretty smart, wasn't he?
But I knew well forget the time he carried that wagon load up there. It was a wagon with a side horse on it, and he layered it in there in layers. And they sent back. I just took a few of them.
Is that right?
And he carried them back the next morning.
Now, how much did they give him for those?
I don't even remember. But it wasn't a whole lot, was it? Nothing. You didn't get nothing.
Right.
Like it was $1.50 a load.
It wasn't very much.
Is that right? That's not much money, is it? It's a lot of work.
It ain't much money, but you know back then, you could buy 50 pounds of flour for 49 cents, and you could buy meat like anywhere from 3 to 5 cents a pound and stuff like that.
But he'd buy
And sugar and coffee.
100 pound sacks of sugar at the time.
Yeah.
100
pounds of
of
pinto
beans.
beans.
And they bought, they had sugar and coffee in
Barrel?
barrels.
Uh-huh.
And you'd buy that with a pound, and you could get a quarter's worth of coffee, and he'd do you for 2-3 weeks. Because he'd get a pretty big old sack.
Is that right?
You could get her high-back old house for 49 cents, or you could get, September bag. Get them for 98 cents, and that was the Washington, D.C., the best of us.
Is that right?
Get socks for a nickel. I know Grandpa went to Athens sometime, and Miss Norton had a store down there, and just had kind of a shoddy stuff, And Grandpa went down there, and he went in that Miss Norton's store there to get him some socks, and she says, now, Miss Hargrove, I got these socks here, and says, they're a nickel a pair. And said, if you'll take 5 pair, I'll let you have them for a quarter. And Grandpa got them socks and brought them home, and he thought he got them in a bargain, just 5 pair for a quarter. And I just see him sitting up there.
That's Doc Gray's store. That's the same
That's
store.
the
Well, it's the same store, but Miss Norton had her own. But she
Okay.
worked, they sold out, and she worked with Grace. And
Okay. All right. Now, what about, y'all had to leave the river down there, place down there because, Mr. Gray lost that place gambling? Is that what happened?
Well, I don't know how he lost it, but anyway, he lost it and we had to move. So, where did we move when we came back?
We moved from out there at Mount McGill's,
No,
3
no.
miles north of
yeah.
Adams, in a little old 2-room house.
Yeah, and we could afford, we'd been for 56 forward for Mount Gilead.
And that was, you know where the bridge is, where we lived in there, like 15 mile, like counting it from Athens. And we moved 3 miles up out of Athens, and Otis walked and lived the old camp.
Is that right?
So that was
18 miles.
18.
And so, was it out like 251?
Yeah.
Oh, 31, is that what it was? 3 miles out of it.
Mhm.
Okay. Now, ain't there something about the sheriff coming down there and throwing people out down there? Did y'all have kid folks that lived down there in some of them houses?
Yeah, Uncle Lige. Uncle Lige knew that.
Tell all about that, if you know, if you remember.
Well, Uncle Lige Uncle Lige rented the place from Fred Gray. Fred Gray told him he hadn't lost it, he still owned it. And so Uncle Lige wanted our house, and Papa wouldn't let him have it.
Well, wait a minute, now how did Papa find out that he had lost it?
Papa went down to town and talked to Eisenhower, and he the one that got it? Hightower. And Papa went down when he heard it and talked to Mr. Hightower. And Mr. Hightower said, yes, he has lost it, because I've got it. And Papa went back and he told Mama that we'd have to move, and so he went and found his house.
So Mr. Hightower wouldn't rent the place to Papa?
Well,
Papa didn't want it.
Papa
He didn't.
didn't want it. You know, if Fred Gray had lost it, Papa didn't want it.
Okay.
And so he went ahead and rented a house. And he told Uncle Lige, and Uncle Lige said, Gray knows what he's doing. And so he wouldn't move. And so Hightower give them 3 days to get out.
Well,
Uncle
the
Lige-
sheriff down there?
Yeah. And give them this notice, and Uncle Lige still wouldn't move. He said, Gray knows what he's doing. And then they come back, and one day it was raining. Hazel had all her clothes wet and was a-washing. And he come down there and throwed them out. Throwed them over across the road and over on another man.
Sold all the furniture, clothes, and stuff?
Everything they had set that on the side of the road.
Is that right?
And Papa told Hassie, you know, Hassie and Becky lived on the same farm, and I thought it ain't Kenny. And Papa told Hassie he better go get him a truck or get somewhere to move, because if he didn't, they'd throw him out. So when they came, Hassie had gone up to Elmer Davis's to get a truck. You know, that old man lives by John now.
By John Hargrove?
Yeah. So he come up there and got Elmer to come down there and move him, and they moved up there in a little old 1-room house.
That was low.
Was that close to where y'all moved to?
No, it was up there not too far from where
Where they were living?
it ain't too far from where we live now. It was over there in the woods. I don't think the little old log house is there anymore. But anyway, Uncle Ollie had gone to get a truck or find a place or do something. Anyway, he'd gone to see something about moving. And a few days before that, Lois had got scalded with a hot kettle of water. And so they come down there at Aunt Tenny's, and when Uncle Ollie wasn't there, Aunt Tenny always brought the chopping axe in the house. And so they said, Miss Hargrove, we come to throw you out. And she said, you can't throw me out. Said, Ollie has gone to find us a place to live, and my baby's sick. And they said, no, we'll have to throw you out. We've got orders to. And they was standing on the porch, and she was standing in the door. And she just reached back behind the door face and got that axe and said, if anybody puts their hands on this bed where this baby's living, I'm going to put their head off this axe. All 3 of them left.
But then they threw Lige and stuff
Yeah,
out.
they'd already throwed Uncle Lige. Uncle Lige was the only one that got thrown out.
Oh.
I remember Aunt Hazel come over there, and Mama was washing. She always tried to wash and get everything cleaned up before moving. And Aunt Hazel come in over there, and she says, well, Myrtle, what are you doing washing up everything? Mama says, well, I always wash and have my things clean before I move. And Aunt Hazel laughed, and she said, well, I used to move, and said, we're going to stay on, move, and sure enough, they didn't move, they just got thrown out. Then, that's when Uncle Elijah moved to Depot. Yeah, but they did stay with Fred Gray. They moved down on the river at Depot on Gray's place. And I don't know how long they stayed there. I don't know. Maybe 2 or 3
But when Fred Gray found out they thrown him out, he sent a truck after him. And he sent Papa word to come. Papa wouldn't fool with him because he had lied to him. And Lucille was talking about Otis walking that 18 miles leaving the town. Well, we hadn't been living there very long till one evening about sundown while Bud and Mr. Miller, that was an old man that stayed with Uncle Elijah, they rode up on the mules and said, we thought we couldn't hear from you, we just thought we'd come and see how you was doing. Well, they spent the night, and the next night they told Papa that Uncle Elijah had sent them down there after that cow.
Why?
Because Papa hadn't paid for the cow yet. And so he went and asked Fred Gray if he could go get it. Fred Gray told him yes, as far as he's concerned, he could go get it. And Papa said, well, you don't worry about this cow. Said, I'm gonna pay for it. Said, no, you're not gonna get it.
So he didn't let him have the
So
cow?
he didn't let him have it.
What did you get that $15?
I think he gave $25. But
No,
you know,
it wasn't a whole lot.
when we started to move, we had another cow, but she was kind of old. And Papa was afraid she couldn't walk that far, so he sold her for $8. But she was a good cow. You know, she gave a lot of milk.
All right, so when you moved to this little place here, the other side of Athens, then you start cutting firewood.
We cut wood while we lived there.
That's all you did. That's all only way you made your living.
That's the only way we made wood.
And then Papa started selling wood uptown, and that's when he got to selling to
Well,
Athens.
we moved on up on the Mooresville Road, and he finally got enough money to buy a truck. Then he started hauling wood himself. And he had a big 2-ton truck, and he'd sell that for $3 piled up.
Truckload.
That's a truck like that in that picture.
Is that right?
What's that now?
The old truck is in that picture over there at Lamb. That's his truck.
Is that right? That's the truck you used to haul wood on right there? Didn't you give me one of these?
I've got one. I didn't give it to you.
I believe it was a 36 Chevrolet, and he got it. How did he get that?
Did he get it from Buck Johnson?
Now this is the house y'all lived in, right here, when y'all used to cut wood and sell it.
We
We said to Athens College when we lived there.
yeah.
You did?
But we still lived in the same neighborhood.
Okay. This is on the Mooresville Road, though, is
Yeah.
that right?
Where that old big barn is on the corner there.
Right across from David Woods.
Oh, is that right?
Yeah.
Huh. Okay.
That's where that picture was made.
Okay. Now, that's not far from where Grandpa Brown died, is that right?
It's a mile.
A mile from there.
So
Okay.
it was before after you turn off 31, before you get to where we did,
Okay.
where you got caught around.
Okay. All right, so how long did y'all live here?
Oh, yeah, that's several
Oh,
years. I don't
several
remember.
years. But now,
We
see,
lived there several
this is
times.
right on the corner, you know, the road. Okay,
Okay,
now
that crossroad.
yeah, but your granddaddy, Brown lived right up here in the next house.
Okay.
And they lived, they
He's
lived
talking
there.
about where Grandpa Brown died.
Yeah, I know what he's talking about when he died, but when we lived here, they lived right up here
Oh,
in the
the
next
next
house.
Is that right? Huh.
And we've been me and others and Georgia Lee picked cotton from Mrs. Brown, and Georgia Lee
I
was
don't know,
like
when I
that.
get tired of talking, I guess.
You never could please her. And we went up there to weigh the cotton, and George Lee made Mr. Brown take hers down and weigh it 3 times, and she still wasn't satisfied. And she said she had more cotton than that. And that just embarrassed Otis to death. He just couldn't hardly stand it.
That's Otis's wife.
Now what? I didn't hear what you said.
Georgie, we picked cotton, me and Otis and George Lee picked cotton from Mr. Brown, and George Lee made Mr. Brown weigh sack of cotton one time 3 times, and she still wasn't satisfied with it, and that just embarrassed her.
Now,
Too deep.
was Otis married whenever y'all was living here, cutting this wood?
No, Otis lived there himself.
He did.
Yeah, well,
He
Papa
wasn't
and
married.
Papa had done. We lived at Round Island. We moved from there to Round Island, didn't we?
Now we moved from there over at Blair's.
Yeah, over at Blair's. We stayed over there 1 year.
Yeah.
Then we moved to Round Island. Well, while we lived at Round Island, Otis got married, and then he lived in that house.
Oh, in
And
this
that's-
house right here?
And your granddaddy, he lived on towards Brown's Corner on across the road from that. So Mr.
Okay.
Brown lived in 2 houses on that road.
Right, right. Okay.
And that's where we picked up. And MD was in the Army, and I was living in Otis, Georgia, and that's how come me there.
And then
And
we
we
moved
cut
back there in 45.
After Otis got killed.
Yeah, we moved back there.
All right, now y'all lived at Round Island. Is that place where they tore that house down and built that shed? Is that where you live? On the right before you get to the church down there.
We lived there 2 years.
All right, what'd you do down there?
We farmed.
You rented a farm right there close to that house?
Yeah, the farm was back behind the house.
Back in that field back there?
Yeah.
Okay, who owned that place?
High Towers.
High Tower stuff.
And you know where the gin is there?
Uh-huh.
Well, back of this little scope of woods between the field and the gin, and we worked all of that back in there too.
Is that right?
Yeah. We
On
had
the
50
opposite
acres.
side of the road from the
And that was the year I married. That was in 44.
Well, Otis got married probably.
Yeah.
He married 43.
We lived there 43 and 44.
Where's, okay. And so Otis got married and he moved back up on the Boyceville Road in this house that y'all had already lived in. All right, what did he do?
He farmed.
He farmed the place up there somewhere?
Well, before he moved in that house, he worked at a barter room in Florence.
Oh, is that right?
Then he would give that up and move back up there on Myrtle Road and farm that year. And that was the year he got killed.
All right, he hadn't been married too long when he got killed.
14 months ago.
He got killed he got married in October, didn't he?
And he got killed the night of
The next-
December the next year.
Of the next.
He married 43 October and he killed me.
Was y'all still living down at Round Island when he got killed? Okay. And he got killed up on Old 31, didn't he? Are you gonna tell about that and how he got killed and everything?
Well,
When did somebody else got killed with him?
yeah, Charlie Bradshaw, his wife's cousin. Now, Otis was killed instantly, and Charlie lived a day or two. And, but they had, went to town, and Otis had got him some medicine that day. He had stomach trouble. And he went to the bus station, him and Charlie went to the bus station to get him a bus ticket. Well, they did get the ticket, but the buses was crowded. That was during the war, you know. And the buses was crowded, so they couldn't get on, and they come back up out there on 31 then, on that street going out 31, and hitched that ride, and a gravel truck swayed out in front of them, and this man swayed around this gravel truck to keep from hitting him head on, and he lost control and went in the ditch and turned over and slid.
Was that road gravel back here?
No, it was paved.
It was paved road?
But it was just a 2-lane road at that time.
All right. Mama said something about Papa and Mr. Bradshaw, or did Papa go up there and see that fellow that was driving that truck? Did they arrest him or something?
Yeah, they arrested him, took him to jail.
Had he been drinking or something?
I don't know if he was drinking or not, but anyway,
I didn't think that the man was going to.
when the law got there, he was crawling out of the cab, and they said, "Are you all right?" And he said, "Yes, I am." And they said, "Well, what about these 2 men laying back here on the road?" And he said that's the first time he had thought about them since he picked them up. He pulled in there where it used to be a cafe, it's a gas station right there by the college. And he pulled in there, and he went in that station, and he said they were standing out there, and asked him if he could give him a ride, and he said, yes, get in. And he said he went on in, and he said that's the last thing he remembered about them. And said when he come back out, he just got in his truck and left, but they had got on the back.
Now, is that little place right